answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the show is a story, but I know who they are. It says, you know, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know, but this person who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%. How do you know? That is Dan Bongino, before he became the assistant to Kash Patel with the FBI. When he still had his program. That was an interview he was giving to a podcaster. It's the first I'd heard of him making a reference. I don't know that he ever made a reference on his program. I might have missed that. But Dan Bongino saying that he got it from a source that he strongly believes in while he was in the Fox Green Room, suggesting this was possibly a Fox employee, maybe someone there as a guest, obviously, saying, you know, Epstein's tied up by the Middle East. They're the ones, somebody in the Middle East, didn't name a country, has the Epstein files, the videos, and everything else, using it as blackmail. Not Epstein using it as blackmail, but someone else. This is pretty shocking. You cannot deny that. And what I'm going to start breaking down for you in the rest of this hour and into the next hour, if you are a strong 100% MAGA, never doubt Donald Trump or anything else about MAGA and what's happening, you might be disappointed with me when we're over, and at the same time, you might even be disgusted. But I've got to lay this out in front of you. This has to be exposed fully, especially after AG Pam Bondi said the other day, I've got all the Epstein documents. They're on my desk, client names and everything. And then now they're saying they don't have all of that. Now, maybe there's a play behind the curtains that we're not aware of. I have to give credit to that possibility. But what you just heard from Bongino, and I want to give you a chance to listen to it again in a few minutes. If someone in the Middle East, don't know which country, could be a friend or foe, had access to whatever Epstein was doing, and they in turn are using it as blackmail against U.S. government officials at all levels. Here we go. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA. July 10, 2025. Mark this program down and make sure if you go to listen and watch it later that you share it with others, because there's a lot of information coming your way. As you know, with Larry Connors USA, you're going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You leave each program with more knowledge than you had when we first started. And you're getting a tip of the iceberg now as to where we're going to be going. But I'm telling you, it is just the tip of the iceberg. Later in this hour, a private investigator's thoughts on the Epstein story. and the files and the suicide. That's later in this hour. Next hour, what Jeffrey Epstein's brother thinks of his death, quote, suicide, and everything else. That's coming up in our next hour. Let me take a moment to remind you, tell you something about that just got released today, and I want you to take advantage of it as soon as you can before it's all closed down. We have, with the connection to the Hammond Center for Free Enterprise, NewsTalkSTL is bringing Steve Forbes to Lindenwood University on September the 18th. The Young Americans Foundation and West Mid Rivers News Magazine will be involved as well. This is absolutely free. Now, I told you it's September the 18th. I'm telling you that far out because you will need tickets to get in, and I would suggest you start applying now. Don't wait until the last minute. This is going to be a big deal. Steve Forbes, Chairman, Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media. You'll want to be there and hear from him, and he may be taking questions. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. September the 18th at Lindenwood University, but mark it on your calendar now, and in fact, go now to NewsTalkSTL and start applying for tickets. It'll cost you nothing, but you'll have to have a ticket to get inside. Now, back to the issues with Jeffrey Epstein. Things are just coming unraveled at a rapid pace. And it's not looking good for some of the MAGA supporters. I've got a piece I'm going to share with you on that later. But let's go to those who like to see Donald Trump and MAGA people destroyed. But you can't deny the facts they're presenting. PBS.
This week, the Department of Justice released a widely anticipated memo detailing the findings of Jeffrey Epstein's 2019 death in a New York City prison. The report ruled out any foul play, confirming Epstein died by suicide, and found no evidence that he kept a client list to incriminate those involved in his sex trafficking ring. Now, some of President Trump's far-right allies are frustrated that the administration appears to be ready to move on from the Epstein investigation. John Yang has more. John?
The Trump administration officials had promised to reveal what many of his conspiracy-minded supporters said was the truth about Epstein's death, that he was murdered so he wouldn't implicate powerful people at his trial. Another example, they said, of the corrupt deep state. But the material released this week supports the official finding that Epstein killed himself. At a cabinet meeting, the president didn't want to talk about it.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
So again, the DOJ and the FBI concluding and releasing in a new document this week, Epstein died by suicide and reinforcing he had no client list. At that point, aside from his death, no client list, how would you possibly be arranging for people to come to your island for these meetings, these perversions with these young women, and you didn't have someone to reach out and call and ask you, hey, do you want to come, or text or something? I cannot buy that part of the argument. There's got to be a client list. Where the hell is it? Who's on it? And I said yesterday, and I'll repeat again, if Donald Trump's name is on the list, make it public. That does not necessarily mean he went there and took part in any of it, but if he's on that list, I want it. And yes, he and Epstein had been friends at one time. And reportedly, Trump walked away from him, supposedly when he realized what the guy was involved in. Do I have more details than that? No, I don't. But my suspicions are not quelled by simply saying there is no client list. There is no way you run that kind of operation without a client list. Where the hell is it? Glenn Thrush is a reporter for the New York Times.
Glenn Thrush covers the Justice Department for the New York Times. Glenn, as you can hear, there are a lot of folks up in arms about this, some of his most loyal supporters. How is the administration dealing with this?
Well, they're attempting to tell everyone to move on after some of the key administration figures, including the current head of the Justice Department and the two top officials at the FBI, stoked these conspiracy theories for political gain and profit for years. So they are essentially attempting to slam shut a door they themselves kicked open.
As you said, this is sort of a 180 for a lot of these people. For Pam Bondi, she said earlier that the files had a lot of names, that client list she was talking about, and a lot of flight logs. And FBI Director Kash Patel talked a lot about this before he took office. Let's listen to what he had to say in a 2023 podcast about the client list and what he said in May on Fox.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls.
As someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
We have no evidence of a suicide. We're told it was. There's no evidence it wasn't, but there's no evidence it was. I say, Kash Patel, follow your own advice. Put on your big boy pants. Come to the table with what you've got. Now, Amy Robach, a reporter for Fox News, had said, I had all of this years ago. No one would listen.
Story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, it was what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying, there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
We had it 3 years ago now. She is, again, an ABC reporter. When she's referring to Virginia Roberts, that's also Virginia Giuffre, an Australian who accused Epstein and others of trafficking her. She died of suicide. That's what happened, we're told. We're going to get into this part of this story more in our next hour. But right now, also, let's look at former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey. They're in the crosshairs of an investigation that could lead to perjury convictions, jail time. Let's go back to 2020 when then Congressman Trey Gowdy was questioning Brennan about the Russian collusion Steele dossier.
Do you know whether any of the underlying allegations made in the Steele dossier were ever tested, probed, examined, cross-examined, whether the sources were examined for reliability, credibility?
I know that there were efforts made by the Bureau to try to understand whether or not any of the information in that was valid, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done.
That's what John Brennan was telling, under oath, Trey Gowdy in a congressional hearing. And Brennan apparently later admitted he knew it was all made up and was not factual. But that's not what he said in 2020 in front of Congress. Once again, Trey Gowdy.
That was an open hearing, Martha. So as you know, you can't discuss classified information. But if you will look over my shoulder at that hearing, you'll see a familiar face, one Kash Patel, the current FBI director. We knew that Brennan was lying. That's why I wanted him on record. They relied heavily on the dossier. John Brennan knew all about the dossier. So Comey's a little bit different because we don't have him on tape quite like we do John Brennan. But with Brennan, it's just like a buffet of lies. You can literally go through the buffet and pick out which one you want. The guy that replaced me on that committee is a guy named John Lee Ratcliffe, who's the CIA director. So there are not two people in the world who know more about John Brennan's problem with the truth than Kash Patel and John Ratcliffe, and I'm very, very happy that they are looking into it.
And speaking of Ratcliffe, he is looking into it. And he currently is saying we're going to declassify and release all internal agency information that helped fuel the Russian hoax. He said, well, you know, all of it was done by Brennan, Clapper, Comey to get Trump. To that point, I want you to turn to another source I have for you on this story. This would be Mark Davis. He is with the Institute for the Third Constitution, Article 3.
You had the Obama White House, President Obama, Vice President Biden, the Attorney General, the FBI Director Comey, the CIA Director Brennan, and many others. They made up the Russian collusion hoax against President Trump. They got an illegal spy warrant on him by lying to the FISA court. They continued to spy on him when President Trump was the president of the United States. This is an obvious criminal conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241. And I would say to Mr. Brennan, nobody's above the law, so you better lawyer up, buddy.
I love that. You better lawyer up, buddy. That is Mike Davis, an attorney himself and founder and president of the Article 3 Foundation, dealing with our Constitution and how it provides for our courts, lower and the Supreme Court. His words of advice to Brennan, you better lawyer up, buddy. All right, coming up, my guest, an FBI investigator, private, and his view of the Epstein case, the suicide or no suicide, and client list or no client list. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
In all these years that Wellington Environmental has been my sponsor, I've never mentioned their duct cleaning services. Allergy season is here, and Wellington crews clean air ducts daily in homes and commercial buildings, also cleaning air handling units and diffusers in commercial facilities. Why? Well, because people will see black dirt and mold on the vents, or they are actually suffering from allergies. Don't be fooled by low-cost duct cleaning providers saying they charge only per vent, because once they get on site, the price will skyrocket. Wellington does not do this, never has. Wellington will give you an estimate, and you say Larry Connors, and immediately you get a 20% discount. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 314-644-4930. Make your home and business better, safer with Wellington. Be well with Wellington. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. The Oak Street Inn and Lounge has some great news. The Speakeasy will now be open on Sundays, starting at 2. open to the public. Great for those in the industry who'll want to enjoy a Sunday fun day. Plus, enjoy sushi and cocktails. What more could you want? You want to make sure you get the code. And how do you get the code to the speakeasy? You go to the Facebook, Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. I'll see you at Oak Street Inn and Lounge in Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest has a lot of experience in investigations, currently a Los Angeles-based private detective, but it also at one time served as an agent with the Pinkerton organization in metropolitan L.A. and other cases as well. Nils Grevillius, glad to have you on board, sir.
It's my sincere pleasure, Mr. Connors. How are you today?
It's fine. It's just Larry, though. We'll go with that. Now,
all right, Larry.
Let's begin to break this down in different pieces because this is like eating an elephant. We have to do it a bite at a time. First of all, let's deal with the suicide statement coming out of the DOJ and the FBI the other day, reconfirming that Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide. Your thoughts?
I think that they're just kind of phoning it in at this point, Larry. Everybody seems to forget that mere hours before Mr. Epstein was found dead, his roommate was an assassin for the narcotics cartels. Nicholas Tartaglione was moved out just a couple of hours before his death. What if Mr. Tartaglione told Mr. Epstein, if you don't do yourself, I'm going to do you, and you won't like the way that I do you, so you better do you?
Well, now there are cameras that were in place, but there was several things happened with these cameras. One was not functioning. One in his cell was not functioning. And the guy supposedly was under a suicide watch anyway, was he not?
That is correct.
And normally procedure is that guy is under constant supervision, video and or in person.
Yeah, he was a high-power inmate, high risk, high power. And for whatever reason, he was not adequately supervised.
The video they have released shows them walking him from one side of the tier of the detention center to another that is out of sight where he's taken into his cell, but there's no camera showing him in the cell at any point. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
So in your investigation so far, is there any footage that would verify it's suicide or that somebody got to him?
Neither at this point, but I don't trust anything coming out of the whole system. I don't think that Mr. Patel nor Ms. Bondi have a perfect control of their agency yet. I think they're still being sandbagged by the insiders, Larry.
There was also about a minute break around midnight, according to Jeffrey Epstein's brother in the video, that for a minute seems information was not recorded at all in any place.
That is correct. And for some convenient reason, the staff were asleep when they were supposed to be working.
Good God. I mean, it's just coinky-dinky after coinky-dinky, and we're supposed to accept this as a fact that it happened in this way.
Well, too many things have occurred, haven't they, Larry?
Yeah, and we were pointing it out before you joined us, Virginia Giffray, who is also known as Virginia Roberts, the woman who came out and was saying, I'm going to help support the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and was fighting for justice for them. She died of suicide.
I understand.
But
I don't have any more information than I'm suspicious of it, but I don't have any evidence whether she did or she didn't. It's just it's impossible to believe much that the FBI or Justice Department is telling us.
Your years as a private investigator, though, what are you looking for that would give you some summation that, yeah, I buy this story?
I would like to see all of the internal communications of the FBI from the start of the operation to the end, and then I want to point something out here. Epstein's whole operation looks like a honey trap that was jointly operated to the benefit of MI6 and the CIA, which is why they were so slow to prosecute him more than a decade ago.
Now, but
And
honey
then
trap,
when all-
you're saying they're trying to lure high-powered men into liaisons with prostitutes, or in this case, underage girls.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of exploitation that can be done in human intelligence running an operation like that. And then once Prince Andrew blundered into it, they probably had to shut it down. It was too risky after that.
I had a clip I aired earlier for the audience, which I'll be playing for them later again, where Dan Bongino, before he joined the FBI, when he still had his own program, he was talking about being in the Fox green room waiting to go on for an interview, and he was talking to someone they described as a 100% reputable source who said, you do know that Epstein was being controlled and basically Mideast factions, nations, I don't know if he named one in particular, were actually involved. They were actually getting the video and using it to lord over and bribe and blackmail others.
That could very well be. I don't have any information, yay or nay, on it, Larry, but I spent a little bit of time in counterintelligence in the Army, and this looks like a classic honey trap operation. And it's if you set it up in the way that Epstein did, private island, kind of a charismatic, mysterious guy, Ghislaine Maxwell, the English woman involved in the whole thing, you could lure fool after fool after fool in. Yeah. And there are 1,000 different ways to exploit a situation like that if you're running an intelligence agency.
And of course, we've seen the logs. We've seen some printout of logs of those on flights on his plane. That does not mean, and that includes Clinton, by the way, and I think Trump also. That does not mean they went to the island. Clinton supposedly did. But either way, it doesn't mean that they were involved in anything other than being on the plane. Are you willing to jump the shark and say they had to be deeper involved?
I don't think that they were necessarily deeper involved, but if you're running it as a honey trap, you want men like Donald Trump and Bill Clinton and other connected celebrity types showing up. It makes it more exciting for the guys who are the real object of the trap.
To that extent, we were told just the other day, the DOJ and the FBI have said there were no client lists. Epstein had no client list. How do you operate a honey trap or anything like that without having a list of, quote, clients?
Well, I agree with you, Larry. It doesn't pass the smell test. I'm going to point something out here. When Pam Bondi said she had the file on her desk and was reviewing it, the next day, the supervisory special agent of the FBI for Southern District of New York, one James Dennehy, suddenly resigned, not from his position, but from the FBI itself. And Dennehy was the one running that operation. Dennehy wasn't a criminal investigator. Dennehy didn't handle child sex trafficking. Dennehy didn't handle narcotics. Jim Dennehy was a counterintelligence man, Larry.
Help me understand that a step further.
Okay. Well, the FBI has two major realms, criminal and counterintelligence. When you make something a counterintelligence operation, you can hide most of it from the rest of the agency. Look what happened with the Durham investigation. It was just revealed about 6 weeks ago that John Durham was denied access to 90% of the material related to Crossfire Hurricane under the rubric of counterintelligence. So insiders of the Bureau are still pulling strings, concealing information from the Attorney General, from Dan Bongino, and from Kash Patel.
Now, are you willing to accept that Kash Patel and Bongino are on the level with this?
I don't have any reason to think otherwise. I'm going to point out that just a year ago, Kash was risking his own freedom. There were people within the Justice Department who wanted to prosecute him.
Right. That's correct. And what about Pam Bondi? What about Pam Bondi saying? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sir. You go ahead. What about Pam Bondi?
Yep. Yeah. Well, Pam Bondi is also a risk taker. She risked her political future to work with Donald Trump. There were a lot of people who wound up in jail for working with Donald Trump. I don't have any reason to believe that Pam Bondi is faking anything. My belief, Larry, is that there's still more to be revealed in this. You'll notice that Judicial Watch posted things on X, formerly Twitter, today about how there's still internal machinations at FBI and Justice.
Yeah, and Axios has been taking it to heart to put out a piece saying that MAGA influencers are bleeding trust over his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Well, they would be happy to report that, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
they would love sow seeds of division, that sort of thing. I'm on board. I want to see what comes out. We've been through a lot, all of us in this country, over the last 10, 11 years.
When you say you're on board, it makes no difference whose name is there and who's involved. We want the full facts, and we want it exposed.
That's correct. The American people are owed a debt of honesty by our government. And it's as if the insiders, the Praetorians, stack up official secrets and maintain them as an inventory like a crack dealer would maintain bags of cocaine.
Good point. Nils Grevillius, a Los Angeles-based private detective currently. I might like to reach out to you in the future again, sir, and go over some more details.
I'd be very pleased. I wanted you to know, Larry, that my father grew up in Booger County, Douglas County, Missouri. And I've got some ties and stories to Missouri, but I'm always standing by when you want to talk to me, Larry.
I want to thank you very much, sir. We do appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Cheers.
All right. Cheers, sir. And coming up, we're going to take a closer look at some of the stuff that's still being hidden from the public and Secret Service suspensions.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I can tell you how to get a free quick quiz to see how artificial intelligence can boost your company's potential. You go to priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. St. Louis Business Magazine listing PRI as one of the leading IT companies, and PRI has its own AI lab to develop what your business needs. priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. You want the best place to watch baseball or any sport and be able to enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys? Lit Cigar Lounge. Lit has so many events each month. You need to constantly check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook. You don't want to miss anything. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting. Replacing your windows and doors? Do not settle for ordinary. Go extraordinary. Renewal by Anderson, the full-service window and door replacement division of Anderson, a name trusted for more than 120 years. Their exclusive FiberX material combines the strength and durability of wood with low-maintenance features of vinyl. You get windows and doors twice as strong as vinyl, energy efficient, built to last. For a limited time, get 25% off every window, patio door, or entry door. No payments for 18 months, zero interest. This is their best new client discount. Dial pound 250, say the keyword windows, or visit rbastl.com. Pound 250, keyword windows, rbastl.com. Get your free estimate. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. It means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I've done 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. I came home with a brand new plan.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Nearly 1 year after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, some critics are still asking why there was not a proper overwatch on that roof near the stage. The 6 Secret Service agents that have been reportedly suspended have been suspended for the blown coverage, but they were not fired. The deputy director defended the agency's decision not to sack anyone. Quote, "We aren't going to fire our way out of this. We're going to focus on the root cause and fix the deficiencies that put us in that situation. Secret Service is totally accountable for Butler." Trump's assassin killed 50-year-old former Fire Chief Corey Comparatori. His widow, Helen, spoke to our own Alexis McAdams about what she wants to ask Secret Service.
I want to know what the hell they were thinking that day. Where were they? Why didn't they come pick up the radios? Why weren't they paying attention? Why did they think that that roof didn't need covered? I can see it. Our blood is all over their hands. I'm angry. I lost the love of my life. My kids lost their father. They screwed up.
They did screw up. And it led to a death of a husband, father, a member of his community, and others were injured. Go back to Butler, Pennsylvania. When that event happened, and I pointed it out that day, that very day when the assassination attempt happened, it was, to my knowledge, I could stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. To my knowledge, CNN was not carrying any of the Trump rallies because they were saying, we never know what he's going to say next. We can't fact-check him enough fast enough to make sure you get the real facts. He could be lying, and we can't catch it until too late. So we're not covering anything he does live. But on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania, CNN was carrying the event live. What are you saying, Larry? What I'm saying is basically a question. Why that day? And there's also been reports that CNN had a video camera prepared to capture extreme slow motion video. I don't know if that's accurate. I do know that the photographer who got a picture of that bullet after it whizzed past Trump's ear got a Pulitzer Prize for it. It actually depicts the bullet in flight after it pierced his ear. And if you recall, Donald Trump was referring to a graphic on a board to the side of him, and he was referring to it, and he turned just at that very moment the gun was fired at him, the first shot. And he grabs his ear and realizes he's been hit, and others then, the Secret Service, jump on him and push him down, escort him off the stage. And, of course, he's got that stance where I love, where one of the agents is helping hold him up, another one a female agent, and that's not knocking her. I have no idea if she had anything wrong one way or the other. But she's crouching down about his waist trying to protect him. The other one's trying to lead him off. But Trump has his fist raised in defiance. Fight, 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 he's saying, as they're taking him off. And he says, hey, I left a shoe back there. I want my shoe. The oversight of some event like that is just, you just do not allow an event like that to happen without complete control. This is not in the middle of Manhattan where you got office windows and buildings everywhere. This is out in rural county. There are 2 or 3 buildings nearby. If anyone's going to be on a roof, wouldn't you not know that you should look there? Wouldn't you have your own snipers there? There were snipers in the same building where the guy was doing the shooting, but they were down in a room below him. And there are reports that they were also just letting anybody come into the gathering, and that the gunman had been in and out of the gathering and seen. And when reports surfaced that there's a guy acting strangely, police had a hard time getting the agents to take him up on it and look for him. I will never believe that there might not be a lot more behind how that event happened. But you know where the left is coming down on this? Jasmine Crockett, let's pull her up and make her the leader of the claim that everybody that's been trying to kill Trump, the guy in Butler and then later at his golf course, they're all MAGA supporters.
The violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right? As well as this most recent situation, they tried to flip it and say, oh, the leftists are, I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, right? But it's only like MAGA that does this.
It's only people like MAGA that would try to kill Trump? What is that woman drinking? I hope no one else gets hold of it because it's damn dangerous. In the meantime, we continue to have the left, and including Jasmine and the rest of the progressives, demonizing ICE, saying that ICE are invading our country. ICE, not the illegals, not the migrants, but ICE agents are the invaders. They're coming in like the Gestapo. Listen to some of this rhetoric they're spreading.
We are normalizing a government agency disappearing people. We are normalizing, we're talking about it like it's no big deal that they are kidnapping people and transporting them to concentration camps, both domestic and foreign.
The rhetoric from Hakeem Jeffries, the rhetoric from Democrat leadership, the record from that awful guest that you just played on CNN, this is eliminationist rhetoric. This is rhetoric that is used to justify violence, that is used to justify terrorism, that has directly led to, has directly inspired enormous assaults, a 700% increase in assaults on ICE officers, and of course, recent attempts at murder against ICE officers, including in Texas, where you had a shootout at, in this case, a Border Patrol facility that, again, is inspired by this hateful, odious, villainous rhetoric.
And yeah, it's vile, it's venomous, and it encourages others to step up. They might see themselves as a great savior of the nation, the world, if they can take down ICE agents and our Trump. I want you to keep something in mind here. These people that are mouthing off like this, they will claim later, well, we did nothing to incite. Every time they open their mouth, when that stuff begins to spew out, they might as well grab a bucket and vomit it into that bucket, because they are definitely trying to put people on fire to go out there and create mayhem against ICE agents, their families, if they can identify them. We began today's program with a soundbite that I told you you would get to hear again before we wrap up this program today in this hour, and you're going to get a chance to hear it again in the next hour. I'm going to give you a little bit different context. It's something Dan Bongino said regarding the Jeffrey Epstein case before he joined the FBI, when he had his own radio program. And I don't know that he ever said it on his specific program, but he did say it on a podcast where he was being interviewed. It bears you hearing again. But before that, you're certainly aware documentary producer Dinesh D'Souza, he did an interview recently with a radical Islamist And this Muslim Islamist said he feared conservatives, but not progressives. Why? That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open, Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I would only vote left. Why is that? I saw them as very stupid. I would fear the conservatives because they come with principle. That's not someone they can brainwash. But the left, I know they have no values and no principles to begin with. I dare you to find one Islamic extremist that votes for Donald Trump. Never do it. They'd give their vote to the leftist who wants to run around in pride parades. And Islamic extremists are against gays and homosexuals and transgenders, but they want the left to go and get busy with that. They want them, go speak about the climate, go speak about abortion, go kill yourselves, go do that. And she's fighting for abortion rights and all the other, my body, my choice. Yes, go do that, go do that.
What is the fundamentalist and jihadi agenda for America?
The future of America has to be Muslim.
That's pretty definitive. And again, that's Denise D'Souza in an interview with a radical Islamist and said the future should be Muslim. And they're working on it. And he also said, look, we're not going to bother our time with conservatives because, one, you're not going to get them to turn. They won't buy our lines and our stories. But the progressive will, and in fact, even though we hate and would kill gay and lesbians, we're going to encourage them to go ahead and continue to wage war with that and talk about climate control and push for abortion. They are using them. And unfortunately, I think maybe some of them on the left might be aware of it. Maybe. But they don't care. All right, back to this interview clip with Dan Bongino. And again, he was giving this to a podcast producer, a podcast program. This is before he joined the FBI. Now, based on what you're going to hear, raises even more questions about what he's doing now that he's with the FBI.
About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. It says, you know, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know. But this person, who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right, swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%. My question to Bongino, and again, he made that statement prior to joining the FBI. What are you doing about that information now? If you're willing to stand by and say the reporter you got it from is Ace's reporter, that you believe it, what are you doing? Now, I'm not saying he's not doing something about it, but I haven't heard anything, and I have seen the report that the FBI, Kash Patel with Bongino, acknowledging Jeffrey Epstein's death was suicide, and there is no client list. That has to be a lie just on the second item. There has to be a client list. Is a Mideast country an ally or an enemy holding all of this in blackmail for various government officials? We're going to get into this in more detail in our next hour. And you're going to hear from Jeffrey Epstein's brother on what he thinks. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Beal to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. You and I might have something in common, back pain. I can tell you where I go for help, Esquire Sports Medicine, the spine of St. Louis. They can put athletes back on the field so they can clearly help us. Esquire Sports Medicine, hands-on chiropractic help on Big Bend, just north of Highway 40, 314-644-0885, EsquireSportsMedicine.com, EsquireSportsMedicine.com. Great patio season to enjoy any of the Cafe Napoli locations. How about the Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield? Enjoying coal-fired pizza, nothing else like it. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. A few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, where you can enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook for details, plus gift cards for friends. I'll see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Question: are you looking to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence for your business? I want you to meet my friends at PRI Global, named by the St. Louis Business Journal as a leading IT consulting firm. 25 years helping local and worldwide companies. PRI Global has a free survey to determine where your company stands in your AI journey. You simply go to priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. And I also have a phone number, so get ready to copy that number. And I'll remind you that PRI Global has its own AI lab, creating, adapting, developing, pushing the boundaries for what AI can do for you. Here's the number, 636-689-0545. 636-689-0545. Or visit priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai.
This is News Talk STL.
You want to answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
James Brennan and James Comey are likely regretting going all in on the Russia hoax now because DOJ sources are telling Fox Digital that the FBI indeed has launched a criminal investigation into the former CIA director and former FBI director for potential wrongdoing related to the Trump-Russia probe and all the alleged false statements made to Congress. The full scope of the investigation is unclear right now, but two sources describe the FBI's view of the duo's interactions as, quote, a conspiracy.
A conspiracy, the words of Laura Ingraham from Fox News. Yes, Brennan and Comey should be in front of a court, a judge, on perjury charges for lying to Congress and lying for various reports, including the John Durham report. Because when it came to the Steele dossier, they knew it was fake. They knew it was fabricated. They knew it was a political tricks campaign orchestrated by Hillary Clinton to claim that Trump was involved in Russian collusion to keep him from winning. And the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee had to pay fines because of that violation. And they used that same fake information to get FISA warrants, a right to wiretap and check on anyone they wanted to because they had this Steele dossier, which was a lie, fabricated. So, yeah, I think they're going to have to end up facing a court. And I pointed out to you yesterday, and I'll reaffirm it, there's a statute of limitations on perjury. One of those dates for Brennan is coming up next month in August. So I want to see something done before the statute of limitations runs out and they can't charge him. We'll break it down for you as we move forward. Thank you for joining us for hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. We're here every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. And when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Facebook or Twitter, Larry Connors USA Rumble or Facebook. And everything later goes up as a podcast. And let me tell you something. If you missed our first hour today, you definitely want to pull it up because we got into some stuff that we're going to rehash to some extent, but we're going to expand on in this hour. And as I said in the beginning of the last hour, some of you may turn against me and this program because I'm going to call it out as I see it. It may not be the way you see it. You're entitled to your opinion. I have the platform here. But at the same time, I've got information and things you need to consider. If you're going to be one of these that just constantly, I'll follow Trump off the cliff of the hill, that's not me. And I'll re-emphasize, there is no man I would put all my faith in. There was only one who's walked this earth that was free of sin of any type, and that was Jesus Christ. Everyone else, I don't care if they're your father, your brother, your best buddy, your wife, your kids, at some point they might mislead you, maybe intentionally. So I encourage you to pull up the previous hour and then push share with that hour and this hour so you can send it on to others. You find the podcast at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. In almost any other podcast form, we're everywhere. You simply search Larry Connors USA. Let me take a moment to tell you about something we've got really big coming up, and I'm giving you a lot of advance notice because It deserves it. And you need to mark your calendar now. And if you want to attend, you need to get tickets. They're free, but you need to get tickets while they're available. This is so far off, I know that many of you will kind of put it out of your head. It is more than 60 days away. But make a note of September the 18th. NewsTalkSTL and the Hammond Center for Free Enterprise bringing Steve Forbes to Lindenwood University, along with the help of the Young Americans Foundation and West Mid-Rivers News Magazine. Absolutely free. You go to NewsTalkSTL.com right now, and you can click on the event link and get your free tickets. Steve Forbes, Chairman, Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media. You'll want to hear his sense and stories of free enterprise and entrepreneurship, and maybe get a chance to ask him a question. This is a rare opportunity. He has not been in the St. Louis area for, I'd say, at least a decade. It will probably be his last time to show up here. September the 18th. On your calendar, go to NewsTalkSTL right now and log in to get tickets. They are free, but you can't get in if you don't have a ticket. And when all the seats are filled at this speaker series on the campus, that's it. Many of us from NewsTalkSTL will be there. My plan is to be there, as I know many others. Now, back to the issue of what we're doing with Larry Connors USA. We do provide you news, analysis, opinion, and education. In just the first hour, folks learn things that they did not know before that hour began. And you're going to hear more in this hour that you did not know as this hour started. News, opinion, analysis, and education. Let's jump back to 2020 when Trey Gowdy was a congressman questioning CIA Director Brennan about the so-called Russian collusion story and Steele dossier.
Do you know whether any of the underlying allegations made in the Steele dossier were ever tested, probed, examined, cross-examined, whether the sources were examined for reliability, credibility?
I know that there were efforts made by the Bureau to try to understand whether or not any of the information in that was valid, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No.
Why not?
Because we didn't. It wasn't part of the corpus of intelligence information that we had. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done.
Now, I have a hard time with that statement because Brennan knows that that Steele dossier was used as a fact to go to justices. Granted, the FBI was doing it, but presenting it as fact to get wiretaps and FISA warrants on any member of the Trump campaign. And the fact that the FBI had to be told that Carter Page, one of the guys the FBI was trying to narrow in on, they had to be told by the CIA, hey, you're going down the wrong road. This guy is a CIA asset. So, John Brennan, you're not aware, you didn't try to verify, you didn't try to see what was involved there? You didn't want to. You clearly did not want to. Trey Gowdy.
That was an open hearing, Martha, so as you know, you can't discuss classified information, but if you will look over my shoulder at that hearing, you'll see a familiar face, one Kash Patel, the current FBI director. We knew that Brennan was lying. That's why I wanted him on record. They relied heavily on the dossier. John Brennan knew all about the dossier. So Comey's a little bit different because we don't have him on tape quite like we do John Brennan. But with Brennan, it's just like a buffet of lies. You can literally go through the buffet and pick out which one you want. The guy that replaced me on that committee is a guy named John Lee Ratcliffe, who's the CIA director. So there are not two people in the world who know more about John Brennan's problem with the truth than Kash Patel and John Ratcliffe, and I'm very, very happy that they are looking into it.
And Ratcliffe is the current CIA director. Recently, he declassified and released an internal agency review of everything behind the Russia hoax. In a statement he posted on social media, Ratcliffe stated, "All the world can now see the truth. Brennan, Clapper, and Comey manipulated intelligence and silenced career professionals all to get Donald Trump." Greg Jarrett, an ABC reporter, has also written a book some time ago that goes over the same ground that now we're going to rehash again because it was covered up. His book in 2019, titled Witch Hunt, he said, "I recounted how Brennan, quote, insisted that the dossier be included in the classified intel report, but then told Congress under oath it was, quote, not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community's assessment." Well, you just heard Brennan say, no, we did not really have any, we weren't really looking at it. We didn't really look at it. It had nothing to do with what we were wanting. Greg Jarrett wrote, Brennan and Clapper were spinning a deception. A prominent colleague contradicted them, produced documents as proof that they were not telling the truth. And in a classified letter to Congress, National Security Agency Director Michael Rogers disclosed the uncorroborated document, the dossier, did factor into the ICA report. That's the Intelligence Community Assessment Report. So the CIA was aware of it, and they knew what was in it and what was good and what stunk to high heaven. Greg Jarrett continued in his book, having been caught in a falsehood, Clapper repudiated his earlier statement, but Brennan continued to deny all of it. Neither has been prosecuted for perjury. And in fact, John Brennan got a job with MSNBC. Isn't it great to get a payout like that you lied to the American public? James Clapper ended up going to work for the CNN. He said, I described what they did for their media purchase. Again, this is Greg Jarrett. The two super spooks launched an all-out attack on Trump, exploiting their new television platforms to advance the toxic fiction that the president was a secret Russian asset. And they did sell it, didn't they? And Trey Gowdy again says there's a very clear reason.
He and Comey insisted that it be included. And why did they insist? Because their hatred for Donald Trump. Look, we knew Brennan hated Donald Trump. It just took a little longer for Comey's hatred to manifest itself. But what we're seeing now is it existed all along. Their hatred for Donald Trump trumped or overcame their objectivity. They're the ones who insisted that something that really wouldn't be fit for the National Enquirer. I mean, it's literally paid for by the opposition. Judges have criticized it. We went back and said, okay, Brennan said you made efforts to corroborate the dossier. Let us see where you tried to do it. And it's just a blank piece of paper. They made no effort. I wouldn't be surprised, Martha, if we didn't figure out those two were behind the leaks to the media. What they really wanted is the media to report Trump is under investigation for ties to Russia. So they got what they wanted. They didn't get the result they wanted, which was him losing the election.
And we need them to be in front of a congressional panel again and a judge facing perjury charges for lying to Congress and the Durham report. Brennan's got to be put in front of a court by mid-August, or the statute of limitations on perjury against him will run out. It has to be done. In the meantime, there are serious and numerous concerns resurfacing about the Epstein suicide and the Epstein files and Jeffrey Epstein's brother.
says that for years he's believed that his brother was murdered inside that jail. And he calls this video completely unconvincing. He's not happy with it. And he also believes that the video could show that his brother was murdered inside his cell, undetected. Here's why. Federal investigators say this just-released surveillance video proves no one entered Jeffrey Epstein's tier the night he died in federal custody. Epstein's brother, Mark, disagrees.
It's just more of a cover-up. They're showing the door to the tier and trying to tell people that it's the door to the cell. You know, that nobody went in or out, but it's the door to the tier. And there's a gap around midnight or something like that for like a minute or so. So who knows what that is? But this thing is bull. It shows nothing.
This camera view shows the special housing unit common area. Those green doors do not lead to cells. You can see when a worker goes in and out, they are entrances to the common area. So watch closely. At 7:49 p.m., guards walk a prisoner who appears to be Epstein across the common area to his cell, but then they disappear off screen to the right. Neither the door to Jeffrey Epstein's tier nor his actual cell door inside the tier are visible. So what does the video prove? The DOJ says if anyone walked toward or away from Epstein's tier that night, they would be captured from this camera angle. But you do see people walking in that direction at certain times. Look at this guard going toward the tier. And Epstein's brother says the video doesn't rule out that someone already inside the tier, like another inmate, could have entered his cell undetected if the cell doors were left unlocked.
There's one of two possibilities. One, whoever locked up the tier killed them before they locked up the tier. And two, somebody was already on the tier that killed them. Those are the two possibilities. Nobody came into the tier in the middle of the night to kill him and then leave. That's not a possibility.
There was a camera in Epstein's tier, see it right here, but the prison has always said it wasn't working.
It just wasn't working. They believe the American public is so gullible that we would just accept it. There might have been a time, but when you pile them on top of each other and on top of each other, if it smells like dog stuff, it is. And they've stepped in it big time, and the smell follows them around. We're going to spend more on this issue before we wrap up this hour. But also coming up, a federal FBI agent says, I was threatened by Bongino. I had to leave my job. Really? Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
I want to tell you more about Wellington Environmental's dustless blasting services. Wellington can blast paint, grease, graffiti, even stripes off parking lots. Truly amazing and powerful. But can Wellington blast something more sensitive? Yes, Wellington can use dry ice to blast soot and odors off smoke-damaged surfaces right after a fire. Currently, Wellington uses dry ice to clean mold off wood inside a home. Why? Well, dry ice immediately disappears, turns into a vapor. That means no mess to clean up, no damaged surfaces. You need to check with Wellington, always researching and practicing with new, better, faster, safer equipment and products for you. And it's very easy to schedule an estimator for your next project. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. Back pain? Follow me to Esquire Sports Medicine, where they've got your back. Esquire is the oldest sports medicine clinic in St. Louis. Dr. Draghi and his team of chiropractors can get you back to work, back to life without the pain. New patients usually scheduled within 24 hours. 314-644-0885. 644-0885. EsquireSportsMedicine.com. I've got a great evening planned for you. We start with dining at the Oak Street Inn Lounge in Cottleville. We enjoy sunset on the rooftop, then down to the Speakeasy. Just one visit, you're going to see why I'm always talking about the Oak Street Inn and Lounge. Plus, you might want to plan a staycation, a romantic getaway. Check out OakStreetInnandLounge.com for various events this summer. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
We first learned how friends of Trump critics were targeted in the purges underway at the FBI last month when the New York Times reported that a top deputy at Norfolk's field office, Michael Feinberg, was threatened with investigation and demotion because of his friendship with former FBI counterintelligence agent Pete Strzok. Feinberg resigned with the understanding that the retaliation he faced meant his career as he knew it, as he'd worked to create it at the FBI, was over. Now Feinberg is speaking out publicly about the extraordinary nature of his ouster and is warning that the purge of career employees at the FBI is even worse than what has been publicly reported. He writes in a chilling new piece detailing the circumstances of his resignation.
So the FBI is being purged of those who were in the FBI when they were targeting Donald Trump and anyone around him. I would assume the same is happening with the IRS and other federal agencies. But they want to make you understand from the leftist media that this is a purge that's uncalled for. It should not be happening. Well, I'd have to see facts of each case before I would agree or disagree. And I don't like throwing a blanket over everything and saying, yeah, all the guys are bad. Because I know they're not. I know there are a lot of good FBI agents in the field and maybe even in the D.C. office. But they had to stay silent or simply follow orders. But there is one particular agent, as you were hearing them refer to, Michael Feinberg, who basically says, I had a great career path ahead of me, and what happened was, well, Bongino found out I had a friendship with someone, and that got me basically shuttled off onto a sidetrack.
Once Dan Bongino learned of his friendship with Pete Strzok, everything changed. Quote, prior to that day, I had never faced any sort of disciplinary review or investigation. And to be clear, I was not accused of violating any rules or regulations this time either. Nor had any of my cases fallen short of institutional standards. My only supposed sin was a long-standing friendship with an individual who appeared on Kash Patel's enemies list and against whom Dan Bongino had railed publicly. Yet rules turned out not to matter much, and so that weekend, Bongino informed my special agent in charge, who in turn informed me that he was halting and actually reversing my professional advancement. Feinberg adds on the nature of his friendship with Pete Strzok this, quote, "If the fact that I sang along to Every Day is Like Sunday while he stood next to me at a Morrissey concert actually represents an imminent danger to the Bureau's integrity, then for the first time in nearly half century on this earth, I'm truly at a loss for words."
Now, I don't know if this guy is absolutely innocent, that everything Agent Peter Strzok was involved in. But you do recall it was Strzok, and Lisa Page of the FBI. They were trying to target Trump. And in fact, Agent there I go again, can't help it. Agent Strzok told Lisa Page, he will not be elected. We've got an insurance policy. He was talking about the Russia dossier and the Russian collusion story. He's also the same one who walked into a Walmart and said, I could smell the MAGA people. They smell. I could smell them. If this agent that suddenly has his career sidetracked because he was considered to be a close friend of Agent Strzok, I would not want to sideline him simply because of a relationship, a friendship even, until I know that he's actively been involved in helping carry out some of the issues to derail Donald Trump and MAGA people. But, as the saying goes, if you lay down with the dog, you will get the fleas. So he feels that he's been unjustly targeted, so the best thing to do is resign while I can. Now, Dan Bongino, now serving, and of course, we carried his program, his syndicated program, before he left to join as the assistant director under Kash Patel with the FBI. And I like his program. But I never heard him say anything on his program. Granted, I couldn't listen to it all the time, but I'm surprised that what I'm going to play for you, I'd not heard before. He is talking not even on his own program. He's doing an interview with someone on a podcast, and they're getting around to discussing the whole issue with Epstein, Epstein's Island, his suicide, and Epstein files.
About a year and a half after that, I'm in a green room at Fox, and I'm not going to say who because they didn't give me permission to share it, but the short story, but not who they are. It says, you know, Epstein's an intelligence asset for people in the Middle East, right? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. I'm like, you sure of that? The person, let's say, is like, I'm absolutely sure of that. That he's either a witting or unwitting asset, intelligence asset, meaning his plane and that island, the cameras, there's a big assumption out there that these videotapes were exclusively in the custody of Epstein. That's a huge mistake. The reason they wanted this story to go away is because there's an assumption like, oh yeah, Epstein had him. No, he wasn't the only one who had him, according to this source. These assets, that's why this blackmail story makes so much sense. Which Middle Eastern countries they are, I don't know, but this person who's a very, very good reporter, I mean, aces, right? Swore Epstein was either a witting or unwitting intelligence asset, and they may have had his plane wired up, and they're the ones who have all this stuff. So the point is, to sum it up, how do you know some of these countries aren't going to some of these power players who aren't making decisions? Because, hey, you wouldn't want this video out there, right? How do you know?
100%. How do you know? Well, now, at that point, he was outside the FBI. And again, if he ever said it on his own program that some Mideastern country had the tapes and files, maybe you heard it, I didn't. But I can find no record of it. Now, granted, I didn't have time to do deep research, but the bottom line is he is now inside the FBI, so I assume that he's actually looking at that, if he really believed it. And yet, just the other day, the FBI, along with the Department of Justice, released statements that Epstein did commit suicide, and they had no client list. No client list. How the hell are you going to traffic children to big influential guys if you don't have their names somewhere to reach out and let them know that you've got something for them. There has to be a client list somewhere. Pam Bondi had said not too long ago, I've got all the Epstein files, everything on my desk. Later she said, well, we're still going through it. And that might be true. And it might be things are happening behind the curtain we don't know right now. We can debate, did Epstein hang himself or not? Did he commit suicide? But the video camera in his cell was not working. But aside from that, there's no way you could have had the Epstein sexcapade take place without names on a list, clients. Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, Steve Bannon, influential Trump allies feuding with the president times, are among those saying there's a cover-up going on here. Axios has loved to jumping into this because Axios is a leftist publication. They're talking about how Trump the other day saying, are you guys still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Can't believe you're asking anything about him. But Axios says even MAGA's most loyal foot soldiers are struggling to explain how top Trump officials could close the Epstein case after promising for years that they would expose the shadowy global elites. So is what Bongino said in that podcast accurate? That some Mideastern nation leader has the Epstein files, the list, video? And I'll repeat it again. You may not want to hear it, but I'm going to say it again. If Trump's name is on that client list or on a list, I want it made public. Then we can examine how and why and get an explanation. But we're not getting everything public. And I do fault Trump, Patel, and Bondi, and now Bongino. You don't like it? I'm sorry. That's the way I'm going with it. Coming up, the fight to destroy ICE.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've got a phone number for you and a website where you can take a free, quick survey to learn how to use artificial intelligence, AI, to put your company on a fast track to the future. Here's the number. It's a 636 area code, 636-689-0545. 689-0545. This is PRI Global. And recently, the St. Louis Business Journal named PRI Global as a leading IT consulting company. 25 years working with hundreds of companies, several Fortune 500, locally and around the world. PRI Global has its own AI lab to develop what's best for your company. Take the free survey and be on your way to the future. 636-689-0545. 689-0545. Or go direct priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. Replacing your windows and doors? Do not settle for ordinary. Go extraordinary. Renewal by Andersen, the full-service window and door replacement division of Andersen, a name trusted for more than 120 years. Their exclusive FiberX material combines the strength and durability of wood with low-maintenance features of vinyl. You get windows and doors twice as strong as vinyl, energy efficient, built to last. For a limited time, get 25% off every window, patio door, or entry door. No payments for 18 months, zero interest. This is their best new client discount. Dial pound 250, say the keyword windows, or visit rbastl.com. Pound 250, keyword windows, rbastl.com. Get your free estimate. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service. You've worked hard for your money, so protect it. Meet my friend Bob Leslie and ask about the Gain and Retain Plan. Leslie Consulting, 40 years in the St. Louis area as a leader in brokerage and risk management. Call 314-721-0066, 721-0066. Oh, and ask Bob how he was the L.A. Dodger #1 pick. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Must be the whiskey. I've been drinking to remember and drinking to forget. I got I love you on my mind. I got Jim Beam on my breath, and loneliness has got the rest. I've got nothing left within me. It must be the whiskey.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
At a time in which so many working people and poor people need government to show up for them, that this administration, the Trump administration, has caused so much consternation and division. Look, we are a welcoming city ordinance. Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE. Whatever their constitutional authority is, that is obviously relegated to the Trump administration.
Whoa. We're going to have to play that one more time for you. That is Chicago Mayor speaking out against ICE. And his statement, as you heard him say, he didn't try to hide it at all. He said, whatever their constitutional authority is, we're going to ignore it. You're saying you would deny constitutional authority, and you guys are the ones always claiming that Trump and MAGA people want to destroy the Constitution. Let's hear that one more time. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson.
At a time in which so many working people and poor people need government to show up for them, that this administration, the Trump administration, has caused so much consternation and division. Look, we are a welcoming city ordinance. Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE. Whatever their constitutional authority is, that is obviously relegated to the Trump administration.
No, if it's constitutional authority, Trump is the commander-in-chief, yes, and is his administration. But you do not get to slip out and say, well, because he's president, we can ignore his constitutional authority that he gave them to carry this. No, you can't. These guys are so lost right now. They're stumbling over themselves. They cannot figure out how to put anything together that's going to work, but all they do know is attack, attack, attack. Well, that's in Chicago. And many have said to New York City, if you're going to elect Mondani, or I think my boots on the ground correspondent renamed him Mondummy, if you're going to elect him to be your mayor, look what happened to Chicago when they went with progressive left mayors. The one they currently have, and you know who they had before. And over the July 4th holiday weekend, I think I saw there were 50 different shootings, 50 different people shot, I should say. I forgot how many died. But since we're talking about what's happening in New York, Mondani, or Mom Dummy, who is a front runner in the race for the nation's most populous city, today got the endorsement of one of New York City's most influential politicians. Well, who would that be? Don't say Andrew Cuomo, because Andrew Cuomo is almost persona non grata at this point. I mean, he could not even win the primary. He's having to run as an independent. And certainly don't say New York City Mayor Adams, because he's running as an independent against this Democrat socialist. He got the support of This name will mean nothing to you, but in New York City, this is supposedly a big deal. Democrat Congressman Adriano Espinolat, I hope I said that correctly, I'm not trying to mispronounce it, is, quote, they say, arguably New York's most powerful Latino leader. And he's willing to back Mondami and make him New York City's first Muslim mayor. Epsilon said today, we're past the primary. The people of New York City have spoken. There's a common denominator in every decision I've made since I began to represent this district in supporting someone. It's called the Democrat Party. You're just going to support the party regardless, right? Regardless, this is a Marxist leading your party at this point. Of course, Mondami sent a note out immediately on social media. Thank you for joining our campaign for an affordable New York City. It will not be so affordable, believe me. They're going to raise minimum wage to $30. They're going to provide free transportation for everyone. They're going to freeze rents from going up. And they're going to basically go after anyone that's got money, probably chasing them out of New York. And they're talking about buying up large sections, maybe a nice neighborhood, buying it all up and turning it into a Muslim enclave, maybe buying a large building in New York City, putting enough money together. Oh, yeah, they will have the money to buy the building and turn it into, again, a Muslim enclave. And this is not a reference against Muslim, but it's the kind of people they might attract, the violence that might come with it. But you got Mondani saying, this councilman and I know the only way we can protect the city is standing firm in our values, standing up for the working class and immigrant New Yorkers. When he says immigrant, he's talking about illegals. New York Governor Cuomo, former New York Governor Cuomo, is out of the picture. This 33-year-old Ugandan-born state assemblyman from Queens is now ready to take over the reins of New York City. If you thought things could not get worse, they can. Coming up, I want to tell you about some Secret Service agents who are suspended for that assassination attempt on Trump in Butler County, Pennsylvania, and also agents tailing former FBI Director James Comey. I'll explain that as well. But before that, there are still those who warn that the sky is falling because of Trump's economic policies and tariffs. Now, granted, this next source is in the Trump camp. He is the National Economic Director.
A lot of economists, Harvard-trained economist Steve Myron, the CEA chair, who put out the report today, who understood all along that the tariff story, that it's going to cause inflation, is not true. And to be fair, I've been on Fox and other networks all the way since January 20th explaining why the tariffs are not going to cause inflation. And now it's in the data that they're not causing inflation. In fact, import prices are going down. So inflation right now is lower than it's been by every measure in more than 4 years. And tariff revenue is through the roof.
Tariff revenue through the roof? Again, that's the National Economic Council Director, Kevin Hassett, saying it's not causing inflation issues. Tariff revenue is through the roof. Well, that's not what the left wanted to happen. They wanted the roof to cave in on you. And they preach that would happen. I want to share another thought on our economic situation right now from Stephen Moore, who's with Fox. And there's a particular reason I'm bringing this to your attention, because this Sunday morning and Sunday evening, we are going to have here on News Talk STL a new 1-hour radio show. The host is Stephen Moore, or also known as Steve Moore. Going to be titled More Money. Going to deal with the economy, finance, and Trump. That will be starting this Sunday morning and Sunday evening. But Moore recently wrote a piece saying everyone knows the big, beautiful bill signed into law the 4th of July lowers burdens for families and businesses. It also averts a $4 trillion tax increase next year. There's enough reason there to celebrate. But what is not known is that this law doesn't change tax policy. It includes dozens of long-sought policy goals, which I call, again, this is Stephen Moore's words, hidden gems. Some of them would be major policy victories. He said, by law, the most aggressive federal advancement of school choice, by allowing low-income parents to direct education dollars to private, charter, or Catholic schools that are better for their kids. The law also expands eligibility for personalized medical savings accounts instead of conventional insurance, allowing you control of your health care dollars. It increases mining and drilling on federal lands to increase access to our natural resource, ending our dependence on the Middle East, China, or Russia. And it also ends the absurd Biden student loan forgiveness program, which is forcing taxpayers to pay for it. And one other thing, the law ends the electric vehicle mandate and phases out the Green New Deal, thus allowing Americans to buy whatever car they want. And it does strengthen requirements for Medicaid and food stamp recipients. He said history shows work requirements end welfare dependency. And that's true. If you're going to be getting Medicaid or Medicare, you must be working if you're capable of doing so. At least 20 hours a week, or volunteering in a place that really needs help. If you truly are physically unable to do any of that, you're not being cut off the rolls as the left would have you believe. He also said, expect the economy to grow at 3% in the years ahead, and bend down the burden of our national debt. He said this could be the biggest consecutive victory in modern times. The words of Stephen Moore, writing a piece for Fox News, and again, starting Sunday morning and Sunday evening, we will have a 1-hour program called More Money, with Stephen Moore hosting that program. I mentioned earlier that, and I spent more time on it in the first hour. If you missed that, it's available as a podcast. Pull it up. But at least 6 U.S. Secret Service agents have been suspended for their conduct during the assassination attempt on President Trump at Butler, Pennsylvania. They're not firing them, but one source is saying there were mistakes made on that day. An independent review revealed systemic issues within the organization, and we do need reforms so Butler-type incident cannot happen again. That's what their decision is. I don't know if that's adequate or not. We will see. And there's no way they should not have spotted the gunman on a rooftop less than 150 yards from Trump. Then you have this story. The Secret Service had agents or others follow James Comey's car and track his cell phone, taking steps, they say, reserved for serious threats after his social media post. Remember the shells they found on the beach 8647 that he put up on his social media account saying, I don't know what this means, but, it's interesting arrangement of shells. I was walking with my wife, Patty, and saw this while we were on the beach. I just decided to take a picture and just put it out there. He was a former FBI director, and he did not know 8647, 86 kill, 47 Trump, 47. And then later when he got home, he was met at his door by Secret Service agents who drove him to D.C. for questioning. This is what the New York Times is now reporting. And then they started surveillance on Comey himself. Donald Trump Jr., in reaction to Comey's post saying, I don't know what 8647 is. I just thought it was a collection of shells. Very interesting. Donald Trump Jr. said, James Comey casually calling for my dad to be murdered. It is not clear, according to the New York Times, exactly what the Secret Service did other than put him under surveillance. What was that to see that he wasn't going to try to carry it out? Or someone might try to carry it out for him and have contact with him? There'll be more on this story, and we'll have it for you. As always, thanks for listening. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.